Joseph J. Williams happily agreed, or happily for us, agreed that to give a talk today. He is the director of the Intelligent Adaptive Interventions Lab at the University of Toronto, also an assistant professor in computer science, with many achievements around, sort of personalization systems and the experimentation and science around it, including winning the Xprize competition around experimentation technology and education. So we're very honored and happy to have Professor Joseph J. Williams with us today to speak in this session. And I think with that, the stage, Joseph, is yours.
Great, thank you so much, Jan. And the first thing I'll tell everyone is that you can actually just, I think Jan put these slides in, so you can pop them open from the chat or scan this QR code, but TinoCC HCI Talk 3 will actually pop up in the slides and you can follow along or just save them for later. It might take a little while to load. Are my slides moving forward right now? Are you seeing them move?
Yes.
Okay, good. There's a little Zoom bug where that doesn't happen sometimes. So I'm about to give you a 2-hour talk in 25 minutes. So buckle up. I need to also speak super slowly because I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. And I tell people that because they say that they miss my talk trying to guess where I'm from. I look European, but I'm actually from Trinidad and Tobago. So now you know the mystery is solved and and I have your full attention. So what I want to do is actually use this talk as a fire hose to say all the things we're doing. Believe it or not, it's only 20% of what we're doing. So you can then follow up. You can read some papers, you can email me, you can email my grad students or otherwise. I just want to say really quickly, and I'm not speaking slow, let me speak slowly. My PhD student is on the faculty industry job market. He's published 14 papers, one kind of best paper, and helped many people. So feel free to reach out to him and tell him apply to a job. I think he should apply in Europe and Asia and so on. And I think you also should broaden his horizons because, for example, like Jan said, I can't believe I hadn't known about Salzburg before, but, they've got 20, 30 people. They're a hub. I mean, they're one of the top centers in the world for basically what I do, which is intelligent adaptive interventions to change people's behavior. So I think please convince him to apply to places like that. So Ananya Bhattacharjee. Great. So in terms of me, as Jan said, I'm also in computer science, psychology, and statistics. You can look at the papers here. We've got 80 papers there. I'll try to provide just enough to excite you to read up on something. TinoCC Williams Research is my research statement, which is a pretty good overview and point that you put in for my tenure case. This is a new thing, TinoCC newsletter. You can sign up there, and then you can basically get spam from us every now and then to remember we exist and see some things that get shared. I'm also on all these social platforms. I feel like I have to be given my research. So add me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, and give me feedback on what I'm posting or tell me, Joseph, do a post on X. I would also be happy to interview anyone, grad students, anyone. I'm a good interviewer. I will interview you for my podcast and make you look like a superstar. So let us know if you're interested. All right, so it's a bit more about Ananya. I will do a lot of showing a slide for a second, so you can check it out in the slides later on, but I won't talk through it because we're trying to be efficient with time. Here's my objectives. After this talk, I want you to be able to tell someone else what is interesting in a paragraph, whether you tell them in person, email, LinkedIn, or Twitter. For example, you could explain how adaptive A/B experimentation could be used for intelligent interventions for a wide range of behavior change. And I want you to have a clear to-do. What's your to-do after this, or your could-do, right? Would you join this newsletter? Would you read paper X at this? Would you share these slides with someone else or read the research statement? Have a clear to-do of what you're going to do after this talk that's going to help you in your research or help you give feedback to us. Here's some announcements, invitations. This URL, TinoCC Join IA Extended. You just take these URLs and you type them into your browser and it pops up like something. So you type that in your browser, lets you actually join our Google Group mailing list. And we try to announce our lab meetings once a week. So you can just pop in and audit it. Or you can be like, hey, I have a queue. I'd like to present lab meetings. So then just email someone and say, I'd love to present a work in progress or something else. We're trying to think of how to build a broad network across the world. And one way is opening our lab meetings up to anyone. I'll have interview to the podcast I'll be launching next year. I'm doing my sabbatical September 2025. I'd love to apply to tech companies. I'd love to visit places like Salzburg and elsewhere. Let me know if you're interested. And happy to collaborate on papers and grants in general. So just ping me. And we're going to run a crowdfunding campaign that you all might be interested in, where we invite people to donate money to research to have practical impact, like the last speaker said. Again, talks and advertisement. I won't talk about these today, but here's some papers we've written about physical health behavior change. I'll let you all skim this. Here's ongoing work on physical health behavior change. So medication adherence with a startup, text and WhatsApp people to actually take medication or vitamins, encouraging exercise, 1 minute healthy habits. How do you get people to remain 1 minute by Instagram or text? It could be going to the gym, physiotherapy, cold plunges, workout classes, yoga, Pilates. You can contact my PhD student here. Faith has been given some good feedback in here. And this URL, Tiny CCF45 Research, basically lays out how we've come up with dozens of messages to get people to go to the gym, which can then be posted as Instagram posts. Come to F45 because it's quick and easy and you see friends. Click here to sign up. How do we figure out the magic words to get people to do that? We've also got work now ongoing with patient-doctor AI scribe. When you go to your doctor, could you actually have something like Otter.ai, which would record the conversation, give you an LLM summary, and let you ask questions afterwards? This is something we're going to try and explore in radiation oncology, and we're open to doing it in other areas. Because here's the thing, I want Xprize. I published 40 papers in learning. You know what my biggest takeaway is for learning? Write stuff down. Write it down and record it, because people just basically are terrible at remembering anything at all. Despite that, we have all these conversations and we don't record them. We don't share them. I think we can save a lot of lives by helping people just record what the doctor said and be available. Great. So here's the actual talk. My goal is to coach behavior change in mental and physical health. And the approach is, how do we transform everyday technology touchpoints into intelligent interventions? And today I'm going to focus on personalized and contextualized interventions. This is not personalized yet, but it's relevant to health. You also 30 seconds to skim that, get overwhelmed, and at least see what you want to read later. This will be the second part of the talk. And when you all see this fire hose, just try and hang on to one thing floating by that this is the cool thing I'm going to follow up on after. Because I know it's overwhelming, but just grab one thing that you want to learn about more after. So here's the high-level framing. Here's what unifies it all. The science of behavior change can help solve many human problems. Imagine if you could get the magic words to change any behavior. What behaviors do you wish you could start doing? What behaviors do you wish you'd stop doing? Do you want to exercise more? Do you want to stop eating so many Oreos? Do you want to speak up more in some contexts and speak up less in other contexts? What behaviors do you wish others would do more or less often in different contexts? Exercising, screen time. Nathan Laundry, my PhD student, works on that. You think about what that is. And how do we figure out, what do you say to people by text, by Instagram, by calendar events? What do you say to them in the right moment to change their behavior? So the vision by 2034 is we're going to give people on-demand, intelligent coaches that measurably, in a randomized controlled trial, help people think through many problems and change behavior for good. We've done work in exercise. We'd like to do it in eating. Done work in medication adherence. Done 15 papers in stress management and mental well-being, which are often connected, right? If you change people's stress, they can actually be healthier. Stress can lead to eating. Exercise can reduce stress. Actually, one thing Faith Young and I discussed in a run in Salzburg was, there is a silver bullet. It is exercise. It is strength training. Let's just get people to do it. It helps with mental health, longevity, and I don't have to convince you all. You all know that's true. How do we get people to do it? So far from 2012 to 2024, I provide a foundation for doing this work, for building these intelligent coaches through the AdaptComp framework, the one of the Xprize, which provides tools for design intelligent interventions. So how do we create these intelligent interventions? What examples? You can read about the AdaptComp paper at that URL, TinyCC AdaptComp paper. But basically, it transforms static user interface components into micro labs for intelligent interventions. We keep testing out messages to get better and better. Here's some examples. Think of text messages. We all get texts. We all use WhatsApp. What you would do is you would take a piece of a text message and make that an AdaptComp. So for example, here's a paper where we send text messages about stress. Here's a story about helpful activities from someone dealing with depression. The pandemic has sure been stressful and debilitating at times, and so on. To deal with this situation, I've tried to find activities to boost my mood, health, and positive emotions. I started a walking routine every morning to start the day off right. At first, it was just a block or 2 or 3, but now I walk for 30 minutes after my coffee and toast. So that's a fine message, right? I bet you all could do better. So you make this an ad comp, that first message, and then you crowdsource messages from the 50 people watching right now. Then we'd actually pipe them in and test them out to see which ones work in which context for who. Does that make sense to everyone? The ad comp, once you make that an ad comp, you basically, we did this for a text messaging system with about $500,000 or more in funding from Microsoft and NIH. And over 3 years, we sent people messages and we'd actually keep randomizing and changing which ones we sent to see what's the right time. When is it a story versus a prompt to reflect? When you're telling someone about behavioral activation versus being grateful. Is it clear to everyone now how you can just take anything, emails, websites, explanations, components of LLMs, make those ad prompts so you can now crowdsource ideas from people and LLMs and test them out to improve them constantly using qualitative experiments, quantitative, or machine learning. Does that make sense to everyone? Or at least can you see that you could start doing this like tomorrow? Here's the framework we give. You take that ad comp like this, the text messaging, and you basically want to have one, easy generation of alternative actions, like LLM and crowdsourcing humans. 2, expected evaluation execution. Use adaptive experiments to integrate reinforcement learning and human judgment. So we want to have expedited Obama slow down. Obama is my keyword. Obama used to talk really quick, and he slowed down, and look where it got him. That's why I'm wearing my blue suit. Just yell at Obama if I'm going fast. Experimentation to integrate reinforcement learning and human judgment. How do you do expedited use of data from experiments for simultaneous execution, giving people what's better, and evaluation, confidence about what's better, so we can test more ideas more quickly? And these two things lead to more effective actions for behavior change. We keep running this cycle over and over again. You take an ad comp, like text messaging, keep adding conditions, and then you actually analyze and dynamically adapt. Go from 50-50 assignment, which we've been doing for 100 years, to weighted randomization. What's the probability message A is better than message B for this person right now? Is it 50-50? Maybe at the start when we have no data. But what if you have some data from the first 10 people? Maybe it's actually 60-40. Or maybe actually you got an expert clinician who says, I think there's a 80% chance A is good for people who never check their messages. But there's a 70% chance B is better for people who do. So then you actually assign with weighted randomization. You give people different probabilities of getting a message with 2 goals of helping them more quickly, but also speeding up how we can discover what's effective for who. Because you want to constantly experiment to end up with enhancements, giving people something most of the time, and personalization. Group A might get B, and the other group might get A. Does that make sense to people? This kind of framework that you can apply for taking like a text message or an email or something, making an ad comp, and then generating ideas, and then using machine learning and human judgment to constantly change the probability of assignments so we can enhance and personalize. Great. So let me do a whirlwind tour through a few of these, okay? So I'll talk about Xprize and Xprize. So Xprize is a tool. You all can go right now to tiny.cc Xprize and test it out. I think that everyone could be using this, and we'd love you to use it and break it, and we'd love for you to like work with us to publish papers to use this for many purposes. Basically, let me show you what's happening. Imagine I'm writing an email. This is a study we actually did to my students. Subject line, tips for managing stress before the exam. So what are you seeing here? I'm basically selecting text and making it an ad comp. So I take the text. I wanted to let you know that being stressed in the exam can actually help you do better. Then I make that an ad comp, and then I can actually click on that and use an LM to come up with other versions. Give me a version that's going to grab their attention. A, being stressed is not that bad for you. Or I would crowdsource it. You all would say, Joseph, I can write a better version of that. Instead of what you wrote here, I would say, being stressed is part of life. Here's how it can actually help you. Or option D, when you're stressed in the exam, remember, it can actually improve your performance. Or option E, and you will get the idea, right? So Xprize lets you go and do that as easily as writing into a Google Doc. So when you do this, when you actually design all these versions and combine a huge tree of expanding options, what's the payoff? Well, we did this. We actually had these 6 different options that we created to basically find different ways of communicating about stress. Some mention instructions, some link to papers, some ask students to explain how do you apply this. And the key takeaway here is a 3-minute message really were magic words. They boosted grades by 4%. from a B to an A minus. So just the right way of saying this actually to get people to change behavior. But we had to test many different options, qualitatively and quantitatively. So do you all see how you could use AB Scribe in your emails, in your text, in your design to make a tree of options working with an LLM? And then it could actually lead to being able to figure out what's actually going to work. And they can have huge impacts. 3 minutes to get a 4% boost in grades because students were able to realize when they're stressed, they can actually use it to their advantage instead of letting it distract them. But you have to say that in just the right way that would work for a particular student. So I'll just let you all skim that. I'll move on. But I think you could use this. So do you all see how what I'm saying here is you could actually do qualitative experiments where you could use AB Scribe to make a tree of options, get feedback from colleagues, from users, and in a way run qualitative AB experiments. Now, in terms of quantitative adaptive AB experiments, what do I mean by that? Think again of message A versus message B, right? Like just like what we're seeing here before, option A versus B. An adaptive experiment changes the probability of assigning arms or conditions during an experiment by using the data collected. For example, start at 50-50 and then get some data and go to 70-30 and then 90-10. This data can be quantitative, like whether people are rating a message as helpful or whether they actually click on a link to see if it's a useful resource. Or it can be qualitative. You as an expert in behavioral science or as a doctor or as a therapist can actually look at how people are responding and say, I think the probability of being helpful is higher. Now, why would you change these probabilities? What does it buy you? Well, if you start at 50-50, right, and you adapt, you might actually see that A is doing better than B, and then A is doing even better than B, and then say, well, if A is so much better than B, why don't I add in option C? For example, someone might be seeing your text messages and suggest a better message, which you then add as option C. And then you reweight to 55, Obama, 55, 5, 40. And this allows you to test a new idea, but keep some people in option B because maybe you're wrong, it's not that much better, or maybe it will work in the future because the context changes or because there's a particular subgroup of users who you want to personalize to and B works really well for. Does that make sense to everyone? How these adaptive A/B experiments allow us to trade off practical benefits like helping users with scientific benefits, confidence about whether or not arms are different. And here's an example. The reinforcement learning band algorithm, posterior Thompson sampling, could actually be used to assign these options. It basically builds a beta Bernoulli model. You can think of it as like a rough version of like a t-test or z-test. And it uses the same data to kind of estimate what's the probability this is A is better than B. But I believe we also, in the future, I really want to write a paper using human judgment, whether it's statisticians, scientists, doctors, designers. And the key thing here is let's keep adding new options as better ideas emerge. I am never happy. These text messages we've built, this 2-month program, I'm not happy with it. It should be constantly changing every day. Every day we don't change it is a potential failure. Because people change, and also there's subgroups of people we have to look out for. And sometimes the same thing that worked for someone, they just get bored of it. So we need these adaptive options to keep changing what we're saying to people. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, now I'm just going to blaze through a bunch of slides. Here's an example of how this fancy math goes into it. This is an Xprize win. We've actually got an NSF grant for you all to have access to this. So you can use our cyber infrastructure. And I'd love to connect this to Jan and others' software development efforts. We have an open source repo and we invite people to be involved. And we're running a competition. And I think many of you will be interested where people can propose interventions for text messages, for emails, and you propose ideas and you see what's impacted. We actually ran one successfully on Mental Health America, where we had about 10 people participate from a pool of 50 social psychologists. So if you're interested, Sophia Panasiuk is the person who can show you how to run a competition. We have a paper like this is Obama. We have a paper that's a tutorial on how to run these. So you saw a lot there, right? What's the piece of it that was most interesting to you and then what you want to learn more about? This is the framework. All right, so now this next part. What do I mean by personalization and contextualization? And what does that look like? And this is Ananya Bhattacharya's led a lot of this work. I will actually just skip through a bunch of slides very quickly here, because I think you all are health people. You can click and read up on the ones you care about the most. So do you all see how we can use SMS to do personalization and contextualization? Because it's ubiquitous and it can be adapted easily. We want to give everyone technology to get access to mental well-being. But you could use this for exercise or anything else as well, getting people to go to appointments. What you're seeing here is a reflective question activity where when people were stressed, you would give them a set of questions to ask. You could apply this to getting people to exercise or eat healthy. In the moment that they're stressed, they click this, open this app or chatbot or whatever it is, and it asks questions using cognitive behavioral therapy to guide them through what they're thinking and feeling to make better decisions. A really cool idea was to design stories and messages that would give people examples of what other people have done. In this case, it was mental health, but it could also be things like eating healthy, taking medication, because we designed these stories to basically have expert input into an example of someone doing something. Here's one. So you might also think, I never want to take my medication. I always feel like it's going to make me feel bad. But then I spoke to my pharmacist and they said X. It made me think Y. So now I'm doing Z. So do you all see how these messages basically can be magic words that give a story with an example of what to do, when to do it, and overcome barriers that patients may have? We also actually now designed a way of people saying what their situation they're in right now, and an LLM will actually then adapt the story to the exact context. For example, they tell us about what's going on with you, like an internship, and now they get a story exactly based on what they're dealing with right now. Again, you could apply this in health or education or other areas. Now, this second study actually allowed people to use LLMs as a thought partner. So how do we actually let someone interact with the LLM itself? So this was in a setting where people are procrastinating. So what a message to send yourself when you're procrastinating. They would give some context, like I have 3 final exams. I don't know why I'm not starting. They would say if they wanted informal or direct or long or short, and they would generate a message. Here's a message you can show yourself when you feel like procrastinating. You can actually edit it to be more suitable to you, or you can make another request. Plus, also, you can actually experiment with the prompt. You can go in and change the prompt. So we're kind of scaffolding people and using LMs to coach them as thought partners of what they should say to themselves, to do magic words to stop procrastinating, to not eat that Oreo, to go to the gym. Now, I want to circle back to data experiments. This is basically when you use experimentation, and what's best on average is not what's best for a subgroup of people. So, for example, red is best on average, but it turns out the 20% of people, blue is better. And so we need to actually be able to discover that. And an adaptive experiment could actually do assignment differently for the 2 groups. So it would actually be able to help you discover what's working for one group versus another. And this helped give us better outcomes, 0.45 success rate versus 0.36. It also increased power to discover what the best arm is for the minority. So we don't give minorities things that are worse because it's best on average for a majority. You can read up this model. It's basically a model for doing these adaptive interventions. Here's the 4 kinds of personalization emphasized. Individual for Joseph versus Zara. Subgroup, like what I just showed. Contextual, it worked for me on Monday, but it doesn't on Tuesday. And the fourth is, even if something works, it's going to change over time. So we need to keep personalizing in the sense of giving someone something that will work even when they themselves change. What are the key things you took away? What's the most interesting you want to learn more about when you read these slides later? And now, what's your takeaway? What is interesting about this? And what's your to-do? What do you want to do after this? Here's the key things covered. What do you take away from part one of the talk? What do you want to learn more about? What do you tell someone is interesting? What about part two? If you want something, let's use Xprize to design messages or emails so we can get things like 3-minute exclamations, boost grades by 4%. Let's use adaptive experiments. Let's personalize with stories and messages that show people principles for how to change their behavior, use LMs to contextualize them, and help people use LMs to come up with messages they can talk to themselves in the moment, like reducing procrastination. And let's do adaptive experiments so we actually can discover when the best intervention for a minority is the opposite of what's best on average. Thank you.